Welcome everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today for this conversation with Annabelle Ténèze, Chief Curator and Director of Les Abattoirs Museum in the south of France, in Toulouse. This conversation, hi Annabelle.
Hi.
Thank you very much for accepting this invitation. This conversation, more than a conversation, it will be a journey, in fact. A journey with Joël Andrianomearisoa's work, permanently exhibited at the museum, and through the temporary exhibition Revue Noire, une histoire d'art contemporain africain. Revue Noire, a history of African contemporary arts. I am speaking to you from our space, one of our spaces in Madrid, in Salaberry. And behind me, the exhibition that is about to open tomorrow by Dagoberto Rodriguez, former Carpinteros. This event is organized in the frame of Art Basel OVR portal, the show that is currently taking place online on the artbasel.com website. You can see we are participating with our gallery with a group show that is titled Unrest, with 3 artists, Ayesha Jatoy, Paloma Polo, and Joël Andrianomearisoa. And that is why we proposed this conversation with the Museum of Les Abattoirs. Annabelle, thank you so much for joining this conversation. Maybe I would like to start, in fact, tell us a little more about the museum and what is the exhibition you will take us from. Where are we going to start today, this journey with you?
Hello, Sabrina. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be able to talk about Joël's work in Les Abattoirs, because Joël's work in Les Abattoirs, which is now permanent, as you told us, was really thought in a way to think differently the museum, and particularly the relationship between art and the museum as a total institution, and as an institution who is devoted to art, not only when we are open, but all the time. So I will take you for this journey through different things. So I will tell you about an exhibition that we have now at the museum, in which Joël's work takes place. But maybe we go back to the facade of the museum, maybe the night view, if it is possible, and because I think it's a really emblematic view of the museum. So just to tell you a few words about our museum. So Les Abattoirs, as its name says, it's a former slaughterhouse, 19th century slaughterhouse, which has been built by an architect who was called Urbain Vitry. And it's a slaughterhouse, but maybe it's more, it looks like more a kind of basilic, I would say, more than a slaughterhouse. I think if you don't know it's a slaughterhouse, you wouldn't imagine it was there. And so the idea is that you have a main building that you see there, just in front, and you have also different buildings around the courtyard you could see, in which we have some artworks, like the Fernand Léger flower that you're seeing there. And and we have also different type of places in this different building. For example, we have, of course, the library, the bookshop, administration office, and so on. And so we had also this idea, that's why you saw the picture with the night, that at night, that we should be a place for art 24 hours a day. So that's why we imagine with Joël with these 2 neons, as you can see. One is about waiting to something to happen, but what to wait for. Dans l'attente du 7e jour qui nous réunira aux premières heures de la nuit. This means waiting for the 7th day, when we will meet at the first hour of the night, and the other that maybe you see less is le temps d'une rencontre pour toujours, which means the time of an encounter or for always, for all the time being. And so this idea is also that also means for a museum that maybe if you're a tourist, you go to Toulouse one day, maybe only a day, and if you can visit us. But even if you are coming one day, maybe you will keep in mind for all your life the art you can have met there. So it's also this idea and this metaphor of art, but also the time of meeting.
These two pieces, in fact, that welcome the visitors, signed by Joël Andrianomearisoa. I have to say that to begin this conversation, I would like to introduce a little more who is Joël, because it's true, Annabelle, you and me, we know him very much.
Exactly.
Our love story with this artist dates, goes from some years ago already. But Joël Andrianomearisoa is an artist from Madagascar who lives between Paris and Antananarivo. And I think as a quick introduction, what I really like to say about this practice is that Joël, to understand his artistic practice, you have three key elements. Sorry. The first of all, it's his fascination for black color, which also leads us to say that he's fascinated by light. So he investigates on light since many years. The second key element for me is the emotions. He's a researcher of the emotions. All his work talks about emotions, and we will see with Annabelle, we will talk about it during this conversation. And the third element is materiality. Joël's works with a lot of different mediums, but it's true that textile and silk paper are materials that are dear to him. And we will see also more during this moment with Annabelle. And in fact, Annabelle, Joël is currently participating in an exhibition, a wonderful exhibition that opened a few days ago, if I am not mistaken.
Yeah, we opened a new show beginning of June in which Joël takes part. The show is more an historical show already, so you will see some pictures. In fact, you maybe when you see this room, you don't understand exactly yet, but you will see in the showcases now. This is a show initially devoted to Revue Noire. So Black Revue Noire in French, which was created in the beginning of the 90s and was published for around 10 years. And this magazine was 4 numbers a year, and each issue was devoted to one country or a place in the diaspora for African arts. So it was really this idea to show in the 90s, you can imagine it's pre-internet time, the dynamic of the African cultural art scene. It was really this idea to look out for materials, the artists, the contents, very different type of art. Of course, you have a lot of things about visual art, but you have also music, you have also literature, you have dance, and sometimes you even have cooking. And so this idea was to tell about the story of a magazine. So you will see there Joël's work in this exhibition. I will talk about it maybe more longer, because this idea was also, if we exhibit a magazine, how do we show the diversity and also the strength of a magazine, which is not very easy to do in in an exhibition place. So we have the first room you saw, in which you see different kind of works, very diverse, which have been reproduced in the magazine, to see how they were looking at very different type of art, but also very different range of artists and materials, older artists, new artists, and so on. And also you saw with Joël pieces, you saw in fact 2 Joël pieces, but the idea was also to how to give the idea of a magazine. It's also how you are a reader, and so that was the idea that also the artists can be readers from of the magazine. Of course, everyone is reader of a magazine. If a magazine is very important, it's because of the contents, but also of the effect the contents had and still has on the readers. And so we haven't seen maybe the other rooms, but you have also 4 rooms devoted only to photograph, because Revue Noire was also a review and also a publishing house, which really worked also on photography for different reasons. One, because they needed to produce the magazine to find photographer in the different country, to help them to make a magazine with beautiful pictures as beautiful as the artwork they were discovering, and to really give the quality, a magazine of quality, to show a magazine to show the quality of art. And so they began to work a lot with photograph, and as a publishing house, they edited an amazing anthology of the African photograph in the 20th century, which is still a very, very strong book, even if it has been published a few years now. And so the beginning of the exhibition is really showing diversity, and also how you can look at very different range of art. And the other part is more also the historical work we did on photograph, and the photograph we gathered, which is an amazing, it's so amazing to be in this room with more than 30 photographs from Africa, and around nearly 300 photographs and pictures. So we are very happy to show this all these materials and artworks to the audience.
Yeah, I would like, in fact, to add something for the audience that might not knew before today Revue Noire. But Revue Noire has been a very, and it still is a publishing house. In fact, we talked in the past, but they are still a publishing house, and I invite you to check on them. But Revue Noire has been very key because, as you said, Annabelle, it was pre-internet. So we are in the late 80s, early 90s, and Jean-Loup Pivin and Pascal Martin de Saint-Léon and Simon Njami, the curator.
And
yes,
was for the literature.
Yes, they have done a great job because they were, I mean, I grew up in Paris, and they were, I think, one of the first to acknowledge contemporary African art. So I think it's important. And in fact, I think maybe you might know better than me, but I think the first or the second magazine of Revue Noire had Joël inside, because I remember that we discovered Joël at the very beginning when he was still a student, an architecture student, in fact. So this is all linked together in a way.
Exactly, because I cannot remember exactly which precise number, because there have been quite a lot of number. And for example, on the cover of the first cover was a Numanso sculpture. And there is also on one of the cover one of the first work also of Pascal Martin Taillou. And they discover and they met with Joël. Maybe he was only 20 in his. I say 20, but maybe not 20 yet.
And 19, yeah.
Yeah, I
right
think it
before,
was
you're right.
between 18 and 20, which was so young. Because it is very important to say that they really were thinking that we were missing in the western part and in Europe, especially, information about African arts, and also not only about the history of African arts, but the creativity of African art then in the 90s and in the 2000s. I think now we know so well there are so strong artists in Africa and such a strong history of contemporary art in Africa, but it was not so well known in the pre-internet time. And they worked, it's important to say, one country by one country. And they created a small team. That's why I was saying they were looking for photographs, because when they were working there, they needed photographs in order to come back with materials to create the magazine. And so they create team for each country, and meeting at in each country people who could introduce them to this type of art, visual art, and so on. That's why also there are so different kind of art. And it's in the magazine regarding Madagascar that they discover, they met with Joël. And it's very interesting because also everything is linked, as you say. And one of the very important pictures in the show, also very historical, it's some photograph from Madagascar, anonymous photograph from the beginning of the 20th century. And we know that Joël also, which is a part of his work, which is less known, worked on through photograph too. And that's true that what is very interesting in asking yourself, how do we exhibit a magazine? That's why also we exhibited Joël's work in this exhibition. It's in a way to try to understand how the magazine was built, what was it showing, what was its quality, and the artistical decision to make this magazine. But what I was saying, it's big magazine with colors. They decided also to ask writers to do text, and it's also the reception, because we're working also with more contemporary African artists, curator, or even European curator or artists who still look for some issues of a magazine, or some people
Yes,
look
they're,
at
yeah, it's
they
true.
have a
They are
favorite
collectible. They are collectible. So here we have some photographs, but there is this in fact black piece that I think you can also see on the left side. So it's a piece signed by Joël and Pascal Martin Taillou. If
Yeah,
I'm
and it's a very interesting piece. One piece which is at the entrance of the show is work that Pascal Martin Taillou did a few years ago, in which he did like a totem with a magazine, but it's also with a big hole to put something in order to stay like a totem. And you see his work at the back, and on the left you see this black box. Which we put in relationship to this amazing work that Abdoulaye Konate, which is the white textile, sorry. And so this is a very different way from the totem kind that Pascal Martin Taillou did, and which is at the entrance of the room, is this black box. And in fact, which is interesting with black box, is that it is said, of course, we cannot open it, so we don't really know, but it is said that in this box, you have one example of each issue of Revue Noire. And it's closed, you cannot open it. So it's like a secret box, but you can also imagine it's a box that can be kept as a treasure, an archives, and so on. And so I think it's all around its black textile. So we know how Joël worked a lot with textile. Especially black textile, and also textile which are not new textile, but already made textile, farm textile, textile shopped, and so on. And also the black box, I would say the box itself, it's also like a historical topic, in the art of the 20th century, you know, to have a box, a black box, what it means, abstraction.
Yeah.
At the same time, to have like this hidden secret, also this idea that I think, you know, when you read something, it goes on in you, in the other readers, in your mind, and mixed with other idea. Maybe sometimes it's very unconscious. And I think it's a kind of this unconscious too, which is put in this very, I would say, classical modernist black box, but with this textile and this long range of textile. And so this is the installation of Joël, which is in the center of a museum, which is beautiful when we see the over. It's in two parts, maybe three parts. If you look at the box, which is just at the center, so it's an artwork that Joël did initially for Dakar Biennale a few years ago, and in which she imagined to be like a visual reader of Revue Noire. So you have two parts. One part which is a sculpture in paper that we will see, and you have all this frame. And in this frame, he used the technique of collage, but also of drawing, of cutting, sometimes more some abstraction, and he reused, of course, some of classical techniques like the black monochrome, as we saw, but also the collage, the assemblage. For example, you see the white papers just on the left at the top and at the back. He uses some cover. The second one at the left in the middle, it's the cover with Pascal Martin Taillou's assemblage that we saw just before. He also decided to use some articles about Africa, about Revue Noire. Sometimes he covers, he cuts, and so on. And it's also, let's say it's a beautiful art piece in itself, yes. You know, for the techniques, but it's also a visual diary, his own visual diary of Revue Noire. And I like this idea that it's very strong in this exhibition to have, of course, the diary of a reading of an artist. How can an artist read of course, he read differently this historical contents, what do you think about it, about the design, and so on. And in front of it, you have this huge paper in sculpture. Maybe we can see again it or some details, yes, which is beautiful because you see it from the room in which we are there at the second floor, but you can see it from also the big hair or over point of view, because we are very lucky in this museum. You have really amazing point of view. And it's like this paper he used, this silk paper, it's really like light. It gives you like very lightly white. And of course, it's a sculpture. It's also, this paper material is very fragile, but at the same time, it's very strong. It gives a lot of light. And of course, it's also this relationship to white paper. White paper is also all the possibilities you can have to write a new story. It's also the possibility to say, if you don't have any materials on a story, that doesn't mean that there is no history. It just as you can look at and find a new one. And so I think it's also, of course, a monochrome, this history of monochrome. And we know also how sometimes in the cliché, the relationship to figurative art in African art is so present, but at the same time, it creates abstraction. And in this context, I think it's also this history of all the possibilities, the possibility to write new story, but also the possibilities to write an history that has not been done yet.
It's very beautiful what you just shared, and in fact, I remember when we presented this whole installation of the frames with made out of the magazine with these white papers, which was a very long installation. I think it was an installation of at all maybe 30-meter long. But I remember also that this exhibition came at a time, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was 2014, and it came at a time where it would be a celebration also for Revue Noire, and I remember being very surprised. I mean, this is like a small anecdote, but I would like really to share what this Revue Noire and this work by Joël is carrying, because I remember in this opening during the biennial, a lot of African artists, a lot of African professionals, or people that works within with the African art in general or in the diaspora, whatever. And I remember really people being moved, and it was a very, as you said, there was a history on the side, and the idea of having these white pages as a book open that would have to be filled, and that there was this idea of hope, which is also something very constant in the work of Joël, this idea of light and hope. In fact, talking about the white, I would like now, Annabelle, to take you to the journey of the one of the pieces that we are showing in the Art Basel OVR. So we are showing 3 pieces in the Art Basel show. One of them is ausência, which is in Portuguese but means absence. And there is, instead of white paper, this one is made in fact of textiles. And it's a piece that where Joël is here instead. I mean, more than being in the projection of the future, we are going back in time, and we are more remembering the past. And I think it's something like very, very particular also of his work, talking about the nostalgia and diving into these emotions. Another piece that I would like to share is the photographs that we are showing, a group of photographs titled "Last Year in Antananarivo," and I would love to discuss to hear you about this work, Annabelle, because you know. I mean, we're going to see some details. We were talking about the archive and the importance of the archive and the importance of photography in the contemporary African art. Maybe I'll let you talk to us about this piece. Do you feel comfortable with it?
Yeah, and I could say also to the audience that the 2 works you were showing, they were presenting together at an amazing exhibition, which was a collective show at the Hamburger Bahnhof. I think it was 3 years ago, and there were this white textile works, and also this photograph, and also a work of neons. And I think Joël is not someone who has worked a lot with photograph, but I think it's very special photograph, as it is also always very special papers, and especially textile, because this textile, they are materials, as you say, which have their own story and history, because they are mainly found and bought and reworked in Antananarivo. So that means they are already used textiles. So that's also why they have also sometimes a different range of color. Let's say of shades of white, or shade of black, and it's the same with this photograph. Joël has not done a lot of photograph, but I think he works on that series of photographs because he found them in Antananarivo, in archives, in FTM archives, and so it was very important for him, I would say, to show also this exploration of history through this very special photograph, because what is very special in this photograph is, at the same time, there seems to be very beautiful photograph of an event in a very beautiful building. But it's also there is this kind of thing. So you say, what is wrong with this story, with this picture? And at one point you realize there are many people from Madagascar, but also there have been, that's a word that Joël is using. It's like they have been civilized and put in this costume, which were very characterized by what would be high fashion at that time, what should be clothes for nice dress and clothes for ball, in relationship to this building. And it's also, of course, it's part of this idea of course, thinking about the colonial history of Madagascar. So it's also this question of identity, which is not so immediate in the other works, of course. But here he goes directly into this Madagascar heritage, which is always there in most of the textile work. But what is interesting with Joël, it doesn't need to say it, you know? In the poem, it doesn't need to say it. He does not especially want to say it, because for him, it's really the idea of creating something new, with something with history, something on which you can project, something you can share, something you can have emotion on. But that doesn't mean this story is not present there, even if it's not seen at the first sight. And so that's why I think also it's this very precise photograph. And of course, it's not any photograph. His photograph is with dresses, with clothes. So that means also the use of the fabrics that himself he worked with.
Yes, in fact, it's very nice what you said, and it's very true. In the exhibition Hello World in the Hamburg Bahnhof 3 years ago, I'm always bad with dates, but it's true that these two pieces, the series of photographs last year in Antananarivo, were really in dialogue with Ausencia. And there was this idea that also these white clothes opened or presented like books in a way would be maybe the residue of those dresses that we see in the photographs. But I think it's a nice moment because to move on into the conversation, because I mean one of the key moments of this journey between Joël Andrianomearisoa and Les Abattoirs is the sentimental product. In a way, and the very specific installation and show that you had in the museum. Can you take us through it, please?
Yeah, of course. So maybe I will tell some few personal things about the museum relationship with Joël, and also my relationship in a way with Joël. The first time I met him, it was 5 years ago now already, and I was planning to meet him regarding his work on textile. Really interested me very much, so I wanted to have a talk with him. And so then I discovered during the studio visit a large range of artworks that I did not expect, and especially something which seems to be less classical, which are the sentimental products. So maybe we can see the installation in Toulouse. So one of the first discussion with Joël was also to where art begins, where art ends, and the result is maybe we hope it begins everywhere and it never stops. But how can we, in an institution, in the classical system of art, go beyond the classical idea of art? Of course, it's not a new challenge. A lot of people are thinking about that, but we wanted to answer this huge question, not by theory, but maybe thinking, let's try to do some experience and let's try to understand and let's try to let go, and trying to theorize more that what we would be able to understand through this story. So we decided to do a few different kind of program. One was this installation, which looked like let's say like a shop, like a kind of shop. Of course, it was an installation in which you can have different kind of Joël fan objects, which are called the sentimental product. It's not object he decide to produce or he choose to because he want to do 1, 2, 10, or it's all object he found and that he rebrand and that he sometimes he modified, sometimes not. But he always had a packaging and also a kind of title or sentences of poetry. So, for example, for these 4 toys, it was Tenderware. So Tenderware is like Kasma. You don't expect war to be tender, of course, or but this idea is it a war in a love affair? We don't know. And if there are some, it's because you find 4 toys. So some have it's not edition, but you will decide first. Oh, I will do that number of objects, or that's a smaller number or larger number. It's really decided by what the materials he found. And so we exhibited with all these objects like it could be a shop, but of course it was not. But also this idea that to finish the installation became a shop, a real shop for 2 days, the last 2 days of the exhibition. And that was the price were not big at all. It was few euros, maximum 70, 80 euros. And the idea, and we were thinking, ending this artwork this installation dismantle itself, and that the object has their own life by the people who will decide to buy them. And what we try to understand why these people were wanting to buy this object or this other. And every story was so different. For example, some of them could have been there by chance, but when we opened the shop, there was a line because some people were wanting to have one of the objects because they were thinking already it's my object, because it was meaning something for them. And we are very surprised because we were thinking some objects which are more funny or easy. It was not, especially the one they were bought first. Some I think very strong and very hard objects were about loneliness, and this object about loneliness were bought, and so some of them also send us some pictures where we put the object and so on. And so it's at the same time an installation which exists, which go on existing by every home where you have some, and also it's totally ephemeral because it changed during all the time of it changed in between the exhibition and now, and it will be we will never be able to redo this installation.
That's I remember this moment at the museum and the impact it had. And I have to say that what's very interesting is, well, at the same time you were working, I mean, this sentimental product installation was within a show, in fact, that was I would say much more heavy about Dada, about the Dadaism.
Yeah,
and the ready-made objects. So it was we were not expecting you to request a full sentimental product installation, and also because it's many years that Joël has been developing it, but I think it was the first time that it was really entering the museum. And the idea of this daily object entering the museum, I think this is something that was very new. And I would like also to make a comment on one thing that you said about the interaction or the response into the audience. I found very interesting the idea that these objects were in fact having a new life with its new owner, and somehow that people were also sharing their memory or the future memory of the object, like sending pictures of the object in the home or tagging it on Instagram or Facebook. I think this is something very, very interesting and powerful in the work of Joël. This possibility to suggest an emotion and to leave the door open.
Yeah, one thing which is very difficult to photograph, but there is also one artwork which was imagined, but we let also live his life. We were really knowing what will happen. It's that we have, as I told you, we have a library which is used especially by the students, but also which is open to everyone. And so we had this idea to put 100 love letters in the different books in the library. Even us, we don't know exactly where Joël puts all these letters. And he remembers some of where he put some of them. So few weeks after the beginning of the show, we went to see in some books if the letters have been taken. Some have been taken, some not. If you ask me where are the letters, I know only where is one. And sometimes, two times I check, but I know it because it's like I put it, I would say, in a book in which I have written, and it's a book, one of the first book in which I have written. So it was like my
You give
best.
us a clue. You give us a clue, but it's true that there was this accidental encounter, this
Exactly.
accidental, the accidentality of life, which is also a very recurring component in the work of Joël, something that he assumes totally.
And also, it was the idea that we have to let go.
Yeah.
In a way, when you do a show, you have to let go a number of things because you can you can give explanation, you can give some contents, of course, you guide in a way with the scenography, the visitors, but how the people will exactly react or what it will make for them, you cannot control that, and that is I would say the most amazing experience. And in this experience of hidden letters, we also let the artworks live itself like that, with the idea that maybe we won't, and I think we won't never know what the people who found them, what they did with them, if they kept them. Of course, some kept them because we are not there anymore. But we also were thinking that maybe in some books which would be less read than the others, maybe there will be, in 10 years or 20 years, someone who will find this letter in a book and he will think, what is that? And maybe only new one will remember this.
I have to say that I've been looking for, I remember visiting the library review and being desperate, opening books to find one of these love letters because I haven't seen them. I haven't seen the content of them, and only Joël and the people will find them. So it will be like a very intimate story between the artist and another one. The presence of text in his work is quite important, and in fact, there are pieces that I really enjoy that the museum, which are text encounters with text, has the letter, but within the museum in some evident places and some others less evident. Would you like to talk to us about that too?
Yeah, in fact, it's the same reflection I would say we had about the neon, and also the reflection about the hidden letters. What I asked to Joël, which was quite, I didn't know what would be his answer, was can you put art, or do you think we could put art in the places which are not considered as places for art in a museum? Because we always think a museum is the place for art, but in fact, not every part of a museum is thought to be able to receive art for security reasons, but also that also some part are considered less important. And our idea is also art is everywhere, and you won't, if you think design is everywhere. Everything has been designed by someone else. And so Joël took the challenge, and so we let him choose, and we let him more than choose. I would say we let him analyze what we were missing as the museum crew, as the museum team, as the museum curator, as the museum director. What are the placing we were letting down in a way in this relationship between art and the people. So that's why Joël decided to put artworks in very different display. For example, some were accessible to some audience, but not to every audience. For example, our meeting room in which we receive people. There is a sentence too. And this is the sentence you have in the bathroom. And it's the same as I would say with the relationship with the visitors, because we are not with the visitors in the bathroom, but so we don't know exactly the reaction. But at the same time, we know we have a lot of reaction, because people takes a lot of photographs and put them on the social media, and on the social media they comment the sentence. Of course, they can take picture of themselves with the artwork, but also they comment if they feel, if they agree, or if it says something about them, especially this one, because it says something that we all can feel. That is also the strongness of, I think, of Joël's work with words. It's that he is able to combine poetry and also simplicity. Because of course it's poetry, there is rhythm, it's beautifully written, but at the same time it is simple, and it is simple as, and everyone can feel, I think, that he could have said the word that Joël has written. And I think also why there is this strong reaction between Joël's words in Les Abattoirs and the audience.
Well, it's there is also your museum several times. I mean, Les Abattoirs, your home, in a way. But I remember the feeling of the transition, being in a space where you transit, where you don't expect art, and Joël plays a lot with that. And there was I don't know, quantity of projects where he has been playing with the idea, or accepting that art might not be seen as art by the viewer, might not be seen at all, and also that it could be just appear a moment and then disappear. And there is, I mean, I would like us to take. I would like you to take us, sorry, to another project. We have very few minutes, but I would like to take you for you to share with us, sorry, another project, which is the boat project that you have done together, which I think also is very poetical and
Yeah,
beyond poetical.
yeah. In fact, when we began this conversation, this idea that really exactly the word you say, is it important that always the people understand they are looking at art, or is it more important that they are in contact with art, they are in contact with something, we can move the people, create something new, interact differently with our atmosphere, our reality, and maybe it's stronger but to know exactly that it's art. Maybe it doesn't need to be defined as art to be relevant or to be efficient or to create sentiments and reaction. So that's why we went on with that kind of project. So, for example, there was a dessert at the Les Abattoirs restaurant, which was only available during the time of exhibition. Oh, yes, it's this one. Okay, sorry, I have been too fast. So this is the dessert, and this idea that what defined this dessert is also the creation of Joël. He created with a restaurant. He kept his own vocabulary, which was very important with this dessert, with the lines, with also the color. It was very tasty. It was not chocolate because the idea was not to be brown. It was really to be black. And so that was part of the show too. And it's we had a lot of works of Daniel Spoer at that time in the museum, and it was also how this idea that gathering, eating, it can be also a moment of art, a moment of sharing, a moment of beauty. And so regarding the boat, because I've been very quickly on the boat, this idea that this is an artwork which go to which create itself the encounter with the viewers, because it's the idea that maybe someone won't go to the museum because he's afraid, he doesn't know if he likes it, if it is for him. But maybe also there is two movements: bring the audience to us and bring the art to the audience. And so this boat was on the Canal du Midi during 1 month. So that means that it was not stopped at one place. It was sailing on the canal. That means, of course, sometimes it stops, and so the people could look at him, but also all the people who were having a walk around the canal, riding bicycle around the canal, were able to catch the words, which were a lot about sentimental journey. We come back to the theme of our talk, which was what can be a journey, or can be a journey which can be very small, going to this canal because you have a walk with your family, but it can be also a long journey, because today we know and especially today, but it was already the case a few years ago, we know how exile also can be a definitive journey. And so it was sharing all this idea of journey, and itself, these artworks on book were doing their own journey to the audience.
It's interesting again. I mean, but this idea of journey, of movement, of not being static. I think it's also in a way a system that Joël uses a lot in his exhibitions, and also more than only the work that would move. Or I mean, it's really. A mechanism or a strategy. I don't know if it's fully aware, but something that Joël uses. And right now, in fact, there is this exhibition that you and me wanted to to share this exhibition that is in Aigues-Mortes. So, in fact, in a fortified city near Toulouse. And can you had the chance? We had, you and me, the chance to see it, Brise Rouge du Soleil. Can you tell us about it, Annabelle, if you don't mind?
Yeah, this is a show which is now on, and I really recommend you to make this experience, because this show is an experience. In fact, Aigues-Mortes is a medieval city which was decided to in the time of the Crusade, and also so in the, around the 11th, 12th centuries. And it was a fortification, but it was also a port, and it was also in the 17th century a prison. And it's very huge, and it's huge, but you have maybe we can go again on the pictures to be sure we understand. And so we go from one tower to the other, and someone else maybe could have decided to do one big installation at one point of the building, very visible from far away, but not at all what Joël decided. He decided that if the specificity of the building is this walk on a few kilometers on the top of the towers, you are quite high. So if it is the specificity of the architecture, that's also what should be the experience of the viewer and of the one with who wants to see the show. So that means you walk from one tower to another with different artworks. You see one there, and I think you can think that there is one artwork in the towers, but there is also letters and so on. But I think the exhibition itself, it's an artwork. It is an artwork, because you go through a journey, through the building, and through the different artworks. And it also creates gradation, and you also interact with the story of a building. This is a very moving work in a tower, which was, I think, the most difficult tower to interact with, because this tower was used in the 17th century for Protestant women who were in jail because of their religion. And some of them, they stayed 30 years in this room. And they let some graffitis, some works on the wall. And so Joël decided to create this white fabrics, very simple, and the numbers has been decided regarding the numbers of women who have been kept in this jail.
Yeah, and there is a little echo. One of the words, in fact, it's resisting. So it's a very powerful piece. Well, thank you, Annabelle. I think we have to wrap up in 2-3 minutes, but we can take maybe one question. So one of the question, let's see if it's gonna appear on the screen. Okay, I can read it. One of the question is, do you have any of Joël's sentimental project? It's directed to both of us. And if so, which one is your favorite?
Maybe I can answer. I have a few. But I decided to buy in the sentimental project in Toulouse. And I have to say my favorite one was the most difficult to buy, because I was really thinking no one will buy the one which is a bottle with only a branch, a part of tree inside, and it was called loneliness, solitude, la solitude. And so I was thinking who is able to have a work about loneliness at home. And after one moment, at the end of the day, I decided to buy it to do this experience. But I would say that I chose one which had two branches, like to be two in the loneliness.
Well, I have a full collection, so I will answer the question, but I have maybe the biggest collection of Joël's sentimental products. But I like to think about it like that. I mean, if I may. But I have so many favorites. I love them all. I'm a huge fan. But I'm thinking that one that I bought for my partner in Life and Crime, which is a small canvas, black canvas, that is cut in two. So I have only the half of it, and letters that put the end, which was a nice gift from my husband, which is still my husband. But now and then there is a full. I mean, there is so many objects that you can encounter in the last. Venice Biennial, for example, Joël, that was representing the first ever pavilion of Madagascar in the Venice Biennial in 2019, has been, in fact, disseminating across the city a wide range of sentimental products. So we were at a party or at a meeting or seeing people walking in the street that we don't know. And everyone was, I mean, not everyone, but a lot of people were wearing a piece of Joël. And sometimes without knowing, they were wearing an artwork by Joël. I have here one of them, which is a classical one. So looking for a temporary boyfriend in Madrid. You might have looking for a temporary boyfriend in Venice. Okay, so this one is for the Egmont exhibition.
The last one from Egmont.
So this is the kind of object. Well, we don't have time, unfortunately, to take another question, but I would like to thank you, Annabelle, for accepting to share your own sentimental journey with Joël Andrianomearisoa. And his journey with le musée Les Abattoirs de Toulouse. I have just to do a little promotion, which I think I can do if you want to travel in the south of France. Please do not hesitate, do not doubt to visit the exhibition Revue Noire, histoire d'art contemporain africain. It's an amazing exhibition and a great testimony. I think it's a real treasure that Annabelle you proposed this show for the audience of Toulouse and of the museum. And I have to strongly invite you to visit our show, which is titled Unrest on the Art Basel OVR portals, an edition that has been curated by three curators, Christina Lee, Magali Ariola, and Larry Osei Mensa. Thank you very much again. And I thank you, Annabelle.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much. And I invite you to come to Toulouse to see the permanent works of Joël, Revue Noire. And I invite you also to visit Egmont, because it's a very strong exhibition, and it's very rare to have such interaction between a medieval building and contemporary art.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Bye.
Bye.